This is Gateway City Sports.
It's a trap!
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
This is the Team of Rivals podcast.
Everything you want to hear from the big sports to the big screen.
He's all by himself, fires into the end zone. Caught! Touchdown! No!
Vaughn into the windup and his first offering. Just a bit outside. He tried the corner and missed.
Doesn't like you. I don't like you either.
Time winding down. Michael for three.
Yes! She is gone!
I don't believe what I just saw!
Go crazy, folks! Go crazy! You believe in miracles?
You may fire when ready.
What?
Cubs Cardinals fans, welcome to the Team of Rivals podcast, proud members of the Gateway City Sports Network, where you can find great podcast and blog content. It's Sunday, September 25th, and you can follow us on social media, Team of Rivals Pod, or you can find us online at teamofrivalspodcast.com. And for those of you who prefer to watch the show, we also post to YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble, so hit the like and subscribe buttons. Be sure that notifications are on so that you know anytime we post new content. Cubs fans, we're going to disappoint you. This is an Albert Pujols appreciation post. And that's going to be the last time that I mention the team from the north side of Chicago, because honestly, even though they've been playing well the second half of the year, I have no appetite to talk about them right now because we witnessed history the other night. And even as a Cubs fan who has had Albert Pujols kick our asses time and time again over the last 2 decades, it's not just a historical moment that's so incredible, you know, that we get to say, oh, yeah, I saw that happen. I really think it ultimately comes down to the fact that, damn it, Albert Pujols just seems like a really solid dude. He seems like a nice guy, and it's easy to root for good people. Unlike my co-host and co-founder of the Team of Rivals podcast, number 104 in the 2021 edition of the Top Cards on Twitter, Ron Nuttall. And Ron, before you open up, I just have to say, totally living up to his official title, permanent occasional guest host, who is permanently occasionally not here, and that includes today because he's moving or something.
It's the longest move I've ever known.
I know, right?
He's milked this thing out for a while. He really has. And so in the spirit of me wearing, on a rare occasion, a piece of Chicago Bears apparel, they did win today, but to the thought you threw out there at the beginning, Pete, appreciating Albert for the player he's been and how he's ending his career, despite the fact that, for his first 11 years in St. Louis, Chicago was one of the punching bags, right, in his first decade of playing. I don't think I'll ever feel that way about Aaron Rodgers, and we're both Bears fans.
Right. Well, the example that always comes to mind for me, and, Elliot and I use him as a punching bag all the time, but still, it's Yadier Molina. He could have a huge season. I mean, not to end his career, because obviously his career ended last year, but he could have some storybook ending this year, and I would not be happy about it, and I would not be celebrating him because he seems like a dick. He seems like he seems pretty damn selfish. I mean, the only other person, honestly, right now wearing the birds on the bat that I could see myself somewhat rooting for and making history will be when Adam Wainwright takes the mound at 55 years old. And he establishes some new record for the oldest pitcher to ever throw a starting pitch in a Major League Baseball game. Because again,
who does that nod go to now? Is it Charlie Huff or is it?
I don't know. Probably
it is one of those knuckleballers, I would think.
Yeah, you got to think so. But I could see myself rooting for Adam Wainwright to make some history. But you're right. We're not going to root for Aaron Rodgers as he starts to write his name into the record books. Just like I can't root for Yadier Molina because neither of them seem like particularly good or nice people.
It definitely if I put myself in the through the lens of a fan, not of the St. Louis Cardinals, I'm not dumb. I can understand the rub.
Just like I would never expect you to root for Javier Baez to set any kind of record. Any Cardinals fan.
There's a little bit of a difference with Baez. He's stupid. Like he's never a showboat or a bad guy because he's a bad guy.
He's not a smart man.
He's just not a smart man. I mean, I go back to it. I think and his career was cut short, but I think my candidate for how you feel about Yadier Molina, my candidate would have been Mark Pryor had he stayed healthy and been a player, because he just wore dick all over his face. He really did. He was an arrogant bastard. He was good, and that's why you hated him even more. Zambrano, I just was entertained by from the outside because I'm like, okay, he had a few good years. Man, he was a tough pitcher when he was somewhat locked in, kind of like Carlos Martinez type of syndrome, right? Like when he was just focused on being a baseball player, he was really damn good. But I never enjoyed anything more than when he lost his mind. It was just the funniest thing to watch. All right.
Oh, wait, no, Cubs fans share that too. Okay, that's not unique to the opposition. Cubs fans kind of got off on it when Carlos lost his mind too, because I mean he went from 0 to 60.
Oh yeah, he put on a show, man. Yeah,
it was entertaining.
It was fuse blown, and this is going to be fun.
Yep.
Back to Albert. So I watched it on Friday, and I know it's unfortunate that it happened to be on Apple TV Plus on a Friday, because I know so many people didn't get to see it, although they might have had free access to see it. A lot of people didn't. You and I are Apple TV users, so it was very easy for me. I could have, or if you have an Apple device, but how many people want to watch a game on their phone if they're at home on a Friday evening? They want to put it on their TV.
Especially when it's history like that.
Right. And, for a lot of people, just they couldn't watch it. I guarantee if I asked my dad right now if he was able to, he's like a Roku user. Again, just like an Android user, just weirdos out there that don't enslave themselves to the Apple ecosystem like we have for over a decade. You probably for 2 decades. But, I watched it, and I was shocked that he hit both in the same night. I really was. And they came quick. It was back-to-back innings, and it was over, right? He'd finally hit that 700 mark. I kind of felt like since he got to about 693, 694, somewhere around that area is when I'm like, okay, he's going to get a lot of it. They're going to put him in every game to the end of the year until he does it. So I thought at that point, like, he's probably going to hit the 700 mark and maybe pass it by 1 or 2 home runs. And, here we go, 9 games left, or actually it was technically 10 games left, right? And he only had two to hit. So I thought it was inevitable. I'm just so thankful that it wasn't in Milwaukee or Pittsburgh, with a half-empty stadium in Pittsburgh. That would have been a shame, right? Like Tony Gwynn, I think when he got his 3,000th hit, I think, he happened to be in Montreal at the time. And we're talking Montreal in like late 90s or early 2000s. I don't remember what year it was, but what a bummer. Series before that, he was in St. Louis. You always want to be in a town that has a packed stadium that appreciates what's going on, and certainly Dodgers, the Dodgers fans certainly did. He'd spent like 87 games or something there last year, so they knew a little bit about him. Plus, he played for the Angels, or just a few blocks down. So, he's probably in a good place if he wasn't going to be at Busch Stadium to break the record. So that was pretty cool. They gave him a nice little standing O. I know they have some good fans out there. But if he would have waited till the 7th inning, it would have been half empty, because you know how it goes in LA, right? Especially if they're down. They're down.
They get there in the 3rd inning and then they leave in the 7th. That way they can beat traffic.
I think he knew that.
Which you can't beat. You've been to a game at Dodger Stadium, right?
You know what, man? I'm ashamed. I have not. I've been to Angels.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you got to set aside like 6 hours out of your day to go to a standard 9-inning baseball game, because you spend half the time in the parking lot. It's not even getting there. It's the parking lot. It's a nightmare. Bad, huh? So you're not beating traffic. You're beating the parking lot by leaving in the 7th inning, because it's just.
I was wondering what the story was. But no, you know what? I haven't. I think my wife has been to Dodger Stadium. I have not. I've been outside of Dodger Stadium at the LAPD Academy. Police Academy is right. You can see it on your way there. And we did a training exercise years ago, probably 20 years ago, when I was out there. So I had driven by it, but no, I had not been to a game there. I would like to. among many other places, even PNC Park. Yes, I would still like to go there too. I heard it's really nice. I just haven't been motivated. Who's motivated to drive to Pittsburgh?
Who's motivated to be in Pittsburgh? Even the Pittsburghers.
They don't want to be in Pittsburgh. If it weren't for the Penguins and Steelers, man. I think it place to dry up real quick. No,
yeah,
cool.
Especially when Mitch Trubisky is your starting quarterback.
Ooh, yeah. That's rough. At least they didn't pay for him what the Bears did.
I mean, man, to go from Ben Roethlisberger to Mitch Trubisky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ouch.
It's like ordering a steak and they throw a McDonald's quarter pounder on your plate.
Overdone.
Undercooked. I don't know if that's possible, but.
Oh, it's possible. Yeah, you mentioned your thought that you when he got to what you said, 683, you thought that it was inevitable.
690s. I think it was 693 is when I felt he's probably going to do it now.
I got to tell you, when he got to 685, and I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to jinx it, but when he got to 685, then I really did. I started rooting for him, and like every day, I'd just take a quick minute and see did Albert hit another one, and rooting for him to get one, and so I told you and Elliot, not that Elliot cares right now, but I told you guys early in the week that it was our homecoming, that I might be able to get on Thursday, but that I was going to be busy all week. And Friday night was a huge night. We had our pep rally, we had our soccer game, we did a fireworks display afterwards. No concept of what was going on out in Los Angeles. But I came home and, turned on the TV, and Apple TV pops up that one of my favorite teams, not that they're my favorite team, but I have them in there so that it lets me know what's going on. One of my favorite teams is live right now, and it's Cardinals Dodgers. So I turned it on thinking, okay, I'll just get the score or the highlighter or whatever that Apple TV gives. And it was on Apple TV Plus. I was like, oh, hey, I get to watch this thing. And comes up, and I gather from the context that Albert had already hit a home run. Yeah. And he's 2 batters away. And next thing you know, Edmund gets on and Albert's up. And I was like, oh, I'm sitting down for this. Yeah. And they bring in the righty, and I thought, oh, don't do this to him. Come on.
Roberts wasn't trying to give it away. I mean, he put in a righty for a reason.
And when he hit that, it was clear. It was gone. Like knowing Dodger Stadium and knowing how the ball flies there.
Yeah. I was the only one awake. It was an early night for most in this house, but I was the only one awake, so I'm kind of sitting there. It's up on the big screen though, so I got to enjoy it.
Yeah, that was late for you. That was what, 11:30?
It was, and I was asleep within an inning and a half of that on Friday. Plus, we had Little League baseball all day Saturday. So you got legendary coach and me that has to get up and get prepare the lineup and think about bullpen moves and all kind of things. So it was 9-10-year-olds. I'll get to that later, but So one of the stories coming out of there is that I thought was pretty interesting, and after that had happened, and they pinched it for him, I think later in the game but I think he opened up to emotions, which is rare for him, by himself, not in front of a camera in a tunnel. And this was an account from, I can't remember who the writer was, but it's also an account from Ollie Marmol, the Cardinals manager, that, seeing him in the tunnel, just letting go, and breaking down basically, after all this is done. So, wishing that, sometimes wishes, I bet every player thinks that's retired, that's had a Hall of Fame type of career, is that, boy, you wish you could have enjoyed it more along the way. Those guys that are so focused on that job, they don't want to get caught up in that stuff because they don't want to think about it. They want to focus on the next pitch, the next inning, the next game. And I think at that point, it was one of those rare occasions he's ever stopped and thought about what just happened and thought about his whole career and just emotions. Just, he didn't try to stop him this time. The machine hit pause button and let emotions, take over. So I thought that was pretty cool. That's a very, we've all been there at some point where we've kind of held ourselves in check for so long, and then that moment comes, you're not even really prepared for it, and you just you can't anymore, and you just let it go. That was a really cool account. None of us will ever see it, but seeing a guy like that who he's probably smiled more this year than I've ever seen him, during his first 11 years. He's definitely enjoyed it, I think, more. But you imagine a moment like that, getting to that kind of plateau in your career right at the end when you've told everybody, this is it, and I believe it is. That would be a lot of how could you hold back on that one, right? Thinking about everything you've accomplished, and you've just hit this that only 3 other players in Major League Baseball history have ever gotten this far. Second only with 3,000 hits and over 700 home runs, and you've got to I'm sure there's some guys that can wait until well after retirement before they let that sink in, but that had to be something that just sunk in immediately. He'd stated he wasn't chasing any records. He doesn't actively do that, but man, how could you not be aware or not know?
Oh, he was totally aware.
He had to be. And so there had to be a little pressure.
But he was aware of what
sure.
he was.
Sure. And you didn't want to go into that cold funk where you ended up at 699. So that had to be a huge relief, but then an immediate, life passes, my life just passed before me, and I'm kind of feeling it all at one time. So that had to be pretty cool to see. But very rare you hear something like that from him.
Yep.
Or an account of him.
I'll tell you, my sincere hope is that whatever it is that has fueled his renaissance this year, right? That final push that has given him arguably one of the best seasons of his career. I know it's in limited duty, but
right.
A performance that I'm sure most Cardinals fans didn't think was possible going into this year, right? I'm sure you guys assumed that it was just going to be a nice swan song that you'd get to see Albert he'd get a couple starts a week and you'd see him off the bench. But so my sincere hope is that hitting pause on the machine, that the machine does start up again. And that he continues this performance into the playoffs, because what I would hate to see is that now that he doesn't have that motivation, and I know he says he wasn't chasing records, but somewhere in a competitor's makeup is that special something that rises to the level of the competition. And I hope that he hasn't now lost that since he crossed the 700 barrier, because what I would hate to see is him not come up in the big moments in the playoffs. I want him, look, I said it in the post that I put on our Twitter, and I've alluded to it here. I want this storybook for Albert Pujols to finish with the happy ending and him slaying the dragon and getting the princess and riding off into the sunset. So I want him to be a playoff MVP. I don't care if it's the division series or the league championship series or the World Series. I want Albert to be the MVP at some point in this. I want him to rise to the occasion and show everybody this is how you play the game.
Yeah,
you stay with the team that you're identified with. You show up big in the big moments, and you set an example for the rest of the game. Yeah, for both fans and for the people who play with you. And I think one of the other reasons that I have enjoyed watching Albert so much is because he plays the game. And I know that youngsters don't like it. He plays the game the right way. He's humble about it. He recognizes that he has been gifted. And yes, a part of that has been his own work ethic and his commitment. He's been gifted, and he's very humble about those gifts. And he doesn't look to show up his competition most of the time. He gets caught up in the moment just like we all do. But for the most part, it's kind of like Scott Rowland. He hits a home run, he puts his head down, he runs around the bases, and then he gets ready for the next.
Albert's had a few bat tosses here and there.
Some.
Yeah,
but everybody does.
Everybody does. As long as it's, and I agree with you, as long as it's genuine, right. And it's in the moment, it's competition. I don't know that you would ever see him do that much down by 9 runs and he hits a solo home run and then does a massive bat flip. I don't see that type of thing ever coming from him. Definitely agree with you when everybody enjoys a happy ending. I mean, we all
Oh yeah. We all enjoy it.
It's right where my head went. Anyway,
that's okay. Our listeners and I heard it.
So I think that I look at what could his motivation be. I know there was the whole Max Kellerman thing, right? What he was alluding to on ESPN, that I've had coaches in the league out there going, so you think he's really juicing last year? What can they really do to him? Can they really suspend him? He's got like 2 weeks left. And I'm kind of looking at this guy, I'm like, again, from an outsider, I get why you might you might go, this guy wasn't that great for like 10 years, and now he's having a resurgence and everything. So the fact is, nobody ever knows like what anybody does in this league, right? We get surprised all the time by players. You know, Tatis Jr. His build, his makeup, you look at him, you're like, he doesn't look like he's doing much. You know, he's still a pretty thin guy, right? Athletic. Here he pops, and it happens all the time. We always get surprised by who does what in this game, and we're equally as surprised by people who obviously are doing it and never get caught doing it, right?
Farnsworth.
I think, Jesus, you seen him lately?
Pryor.
You seen pictures of him lately? You should Google one. It's gross, man. I mean, I don't know how that guy got that big, but anyway, I'm off track here.
Yeah, you do.
Well, yeah, we do. Yes. You know, if there's any player that would shock me that was doing anything they shouldn't, it would be.
Good God.
Looking at it now, it's pretty grotesque, right? It looks like a He-Man doll, like from the 80s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't look right.
No.
Again, I'll put him one of those not so bright buckets, right? We got to put him there.
Oh yeah.
Back to Albert though. If there's any player that I'd fall off my chair if I heard anything like that, it'd be him. Just by the way I think he played, the work he's put in. Look, coming back this year, I genuinely believe that he wanted to come back here and finish his career. I genuinely believe that, and the fact that there was a DH this year, like everything aligned perfectly for it, and I think it was a good move. I agree. No, I did not expect him to. I didn't think he'd get enough at bats to get 21 home runs this year. I think I am totally in line with you that I thought it'd be a spot start here and there. I thought just having him around the clubhouse, around young players, they saw as a positive. He's worth a roster spot. One more run with Yachty and Waino, and this is what we'll call it. And that's, I think, most of us that had reasonable expectations, this is what we thought would happen. But the more playing time he got, the more at bats he got, the better he got. And I do believe it's 100% him. I don't think he's doing anything like that. Again, I can be completely shocked. I know it's been alluded to by some, even some of the media are questioning, why this resurgence all of a sudden. And there's something to be said for a player like, it's my last push, man. I'm going to empty the tank out. Everything I've got is going to go into this. And it's not, I'm sure the 700 home runs are on his mind. But doing it in that uniform in Southern California where his family lives now, I'm sure it's pretty important to him. And, very happy moment in baseball, which I haven't had very many in the last couple of years, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's been a rough run, the way the team goes hot and cold and the way they play. And baseball in general has not been, I'd say, as fun. I haven't enjoyed as much as I used to, but, a little moment like that kind of brought me back a decade, to when I was enjoying it, the most. And it was a very, very cool experience. I'm glad I got to see that. I'm actually glad I got to see it alone. I'm glad nobody was around, because nobody talking, nobody saying anything about it. Just got to kind of enjoy it. So yeah, it was very, very cool. That really nothing more to say, man. It's it really is a storybook ending to his career so far. And I know they're gonna get into the playoffs at this point. There's 9 games left, including today. They're already down 1-0. Waino's on the mound. I've got it on here off to the side, but they're going to get in. I don't, like years before though, Pete, I don't have high expectations for the playoffs. There are a couple top teams here in the National League. I just don't see them getting by the good pitching. I think the good pitching is going to get them. We've seen them go really cold over the last, call it 10 days with their offense. I mean, they had a record number of innings where they didn't score a single run until, mid-series against San Diego. So their case, what's frustrating about this team too, I know we're shifting gears off of Albert here, but it's just amazing the way this team, when it's not like one or two players go cold, man, it's the whole team. And it's really incredible that they go through spells like this. And I'm hoping this is one of them and they can crawl their way back out by the time they have to face Milwaukee and Pittsburgh at the end of the year. Otherwise, it is going to be a short postseason for these guys, I think. Right now they're lined up to face San Diego. And San Diego does have good arms. So
yeah, but San Diego, they're struggling to create offense. I mean, Juan Soto has not been, boy, we know that he's going to get straightened out. But
sure.
Boy, you guys got to feel like you dodged a bullet in the latter half of this year.
Well, I mean,
it's going to hurt in the years to come.
Yeah, it will. I mean, maybe we'll see. I mean, depending on who they were asking for, the name Jordan Walker, if he comes up and he makes an impact and he becomes a core player, then we're all going to agree, like, damn, you dodged a bullet. If he comes up and performs like Dylan Carlson has so far, we're like, God damn, it'd been nice having Soto for a couple of years. I know Dylan Carlson Gen Z fans are pissed at me, as soon as they hear this, but he swung a very light bat. I'd like to compare his numbers to John Jay's numbers, because I bet they're not that far off. I just being honest. I mean,
at least he uses a normal bat.
I'll give him that. And he reminds me so much of Carlos Beltran. Both switch hitters, they have the same finish to their swing where they wrap that bat all the way around their body. And I'm like, you get excited when you saw him come up. You're like, shit, this Carlos Beltran looked a lot like how this kid plays. And, but here we are. I'm not sold on him yet. Not that anybody's asking for my permission, but
you always wonder about that. How the guys who, for whatever reason, get a lot of pressure put on them because of some outside thing, right? Their name was offered up in a trade or was rumored to be offered up in a trade that doesn't happen. And so then the fans blame him, right? For no fault of his own, right. Or a player gets traded for somebody and never lives up to justifying that value. And the fans are like, well, why did we get rid of this guy who ended up being a sure thing and we got this piece of shit, right? You always worry about those players and how it ends up affecting them long term. Yeah, so I feel kind of bad for them.
Yeah. I do too. Cause I don't like the heat that, some of the young players get because they, Cardinals didn't want to give up on him. They just didn't want to they didn't want to deal that guy. Fans that, criticize the front office often, they have like one bullet to use against front office in regards to trades. Tons of them in free agent signings, right? They suck at that. It was the Ozuna trade. At the time, we all thought it was a pretty good deal. They needed a bat desperately somewhere in the middle of that lineup. But, Sandy Alcantara was part of that deal. And, look at, he's all-star at this point. Ozuna's, when he's not getting in trouble, he's striking out. So that was a bad deal. But that's the only one that most fans can point out and said St. Louis lost that one. A lot of other deals they really can't. We'll see. Jordan Montgomery was a good pickup so far this year. Last couple of starts have been very rough, but that one's been a surprise. Jose Quintana has pitched fantastic for St. Louis. I mean, I know that I didn't expect this. I didn't expect it to go this well, Pete. I really didn't. I thought this would be 4 ERA, somewhere around there. Maybe eat up 5 innings a start, and they'd have to pull him. He's been way better than what I predicted.
Testament to a good catcher. I give grudging respect to it.
It does make a difference. It really does.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. And it
although he didn't have Yachty there for, probably about a month after he was traded. Well, not a month, but several, I think 2 or 3 starts before Yachty came back. So maybe breed of catcher in the system. I don't know, but it could also be going to a team that's a contender.
That could be.
Yeah.
Although when he was traded for, the Cubs were a contender. In fact, he was supposed to put them over the top.
Yeah.
And at best, in his best moments, he stabilized the Cubs rotation. He never put them over the top.
No, absolutely not. And really never, Yu Darvish didn't either. But he was
you're right.
He was kind of a signing replacement for Arrieta, but we knew Arrieta, whatever Arrieta we knew.
Yep.
We knew that he was done. He was done being that guy.
And ultimately that wasn't Yu Darvish's fault, right? Yu Darvish, I guess you could say he solidified the rotation in that it didn't backslide when Arrieta left.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. He didn't. You traded an ace for an ace, which, I mean, that's what you want. The problem was that they didn't fill in they didn't upgrade the rest of the rotation. And so they pretty much just treaded water. And at that point in time, that's not what they needed. But there were other problems all around the organization. That organization has not been, until the last year and a half, had not been producing its own talent. But the future looks bright. But we're not here to talk about the Cubs.
I know. We won't.
I did not jump on a Sunday to talk about the Cubs.
One of the other, outcomes of this game being on Apple TV Plus, right, is a little bit of a bummer. Like the radio team got to make the call, right, on radio. But Danny Mac didn't, obviously, on Bally Sports broadcast, right? Because it was an Apple TV exclusive, different announcers. Little bit of a bummer. I would have loved to have heard what he would have said.
Still a very cool story that came out of that, because I was reading it too. It was supposed to be his inning on the radio, and he gave it to John Rooney.
He gave it to John Rooney. And John Rooney it was a fantastic call. I was going to put it on the board earlier, but decided not to, because I know it's floating around there on Twitter. So if you want to see it, you can definitely look it up. It's there. But he made a very fantastic call, and he dated it, as he called it. And he's been with the Cardinals since 2006. I think, what a year to join them. Former White Sox guy on the radio, right? So they didn't get their normal TV crew, but I think the Apple TV Plus presentation and crew, I think it was pretty good. I know that it gets criticism because it's not your hometown guys calling it. But I think the few games I've caught on Apple TV Plus haven't been bad. I think they've been pretty good, actually.
Yeah, I got to say, I like Apple TV's presentation of the game. It's clean. There's not a lot of clutter on the screen. It's got the little button in the bottom right-hand corner that has some statistical relevance to the game, but there's nothing that's over. Like I'm looking at the football game that I've got on my screen right now, right? And there is shit everywhere. They've got overlays.
You get the ticker at the bottom. Yep.
And it's like, I just want to watch the game. Like, get all this stuff off the screen so I can actually see what's going on the field. Yeah. And I feel like that when I'm watching a baseball game too. There's so much stuff on it. I do like what Apple TV has done so far in their coverage of the games. It's very clean. The focus is on the game. It's not on the cool graphics that you can put on the screen.
Yeah, I'm looking at even the regular feed right now. There's just there's a score ticker to the bottom right, but this day and age, who doesn't have a cell phone sitting somewhere near them that can check a score when you want to anyway? Whatever, I can gripe about that all day long. But I thought that crew on Apple did a really good job on that game, and the radio crew did get called. And yes, Danny Mac did give up the mic. Didn't have to, but he did. I thought it was a pretty cool move to let the radio guys who were there all the time on the radio make the call. I would have loved. The one I'm disappointed about the most, if you haven't heard them, I don't have a clip handy at the moment, but is Polo Asensio and Benji Molina on the Cardinals Spanish broadcast. It is fantastic. There are several calls they've made of Pujols home runs this year. I would have loved, and they don't do road games. That's the only thing. They only do those home broadcasts. Man, I would have loved to have heard those guys just explode. And I don't know half of what they're saying. I know the game well enough, so I can kind of follow along, right? But
yeah, and pelota.
I also know La Máquina. So I would have loved to have heard those guys call that play. That would have been great. I can't listen to those enough. I love whoever puts those clips up of Polo calling those, man. Because Benji didn't say much. He's in the back cheering and clapping. He's like the Ron Santo.
He's the Ron Santo of the Spanish language broadcast.
Yeah, he's just like cheering. He just turns into a fan at that moment. You hear him screaming in the background. You hear Polo making the call, and those guys are so passionate. I mean, there's world of difference between how some of the American broadcasters call these games. They do a great job, but man, if you got to listen to a Spanish broadcaster call it like a milestone home run, you've never heard anything like it. It makes you want to learn the language like instantly, and none of us can do that. I can't. That's for sure. So I'm a little disappointed it wasn't at home for that reason alone.
Yeah, honestly, it's that is one of the things that I was similarly happy about, even though they didn't get the call. The fact that Pat Hughes was on the radio when the Cubs won the World Series. So you don't have to listen to the Fox broadcast if you want to relive it. You can go find it on the internet, and there's the overlay. And you can watch Chris Bryant make the
Yeah.
throw over to Anthony Rizzo, and you get to hear Pat Hughes making that
That's
call.
the one
a
thing I
really,
was
really special
missing.
moment.
It's one thing that Apple didn't have, right? It was radio overlay. MLB.TV does offer that. They even offered it on Apple TV now, where you can listen to the. Now it's never in sync, which is a little frustrating. So what I typically do is I put the phone to the Bluetooth speaker and I listen to the audio only on MLB TV. But then I turn the game on. I either have to pause the game a little bit or pause the audio feed. And when I hear, here's the pitch, then I hit play on the other device. And I probably have to do that 4 or 5 times before I get it close enough. Because even when you hear a foul ball, like it doesn't come off the bat when you see it, because you can hear that little crack. Like I get it pretty close most of the time, but it was late enough on Friday where I just wasn't going to do that. But man, I wish I would have now. But the clip's out there. Whoever wants to see it. It's great.
Yep. Well, I don't know that there's much more to say except here's a tip of the cap to Albert, and here's to hoping that he continues this storybook finish and finishes on a high for the rest of the regular season and then into the playoffs. I want him to walk off on cloud 9, and clearly, right, first ballot Hall of Famer. There's no doubt. He's getting in.
You still hear it from people who think, he might be.
Well, actually, so that's relevant to your shirt. And this might be a good way to get, I don't know if you heard it, but it got played up a little bit here in Chicago. When the Hall of Fame announcement was made, the NFL Hall of Fame announcement was made this year, and Devin Hester fell short. The Hall of Fame called him and told him, Devin, we know you're going to get in. There were some other guys who, we felt it was kind of, they'd been waiting a long time and we wanted to make sure they got it. And it's like, okay, come on. And that's what you worry about. And you see it. It's different in Major League Baseball because Major League's Hall of Fame is voted on, and, there are actual ballots and everything. And you get to see the ballots. So who did and did not vote for somebody, and they'll explain that, I knew I was going to get it. But you see that with Devin Hester. Like, the man changed the game. Right? He's undeniably the greatest return man to have ever been. Look, if you could say somebody was better than Deion Sanders at something, that's saying something. And he was
pretty electric.
The greatest that there ever was. Yeah. And yes, I'm a homer because he was a Bear, but still, the man was incredible. He's not a first ballot Hall of Famer. Really? I'm not even asking for him to be unanimous. Just first ballot Hall of Famer without a doubt. And I feel the same way about Albert. And I don't want to see anybody be like, oh, well, no, I'm not going to vote for him because I know he's going to get in. So I'm going to use that vote for somebody else who I feel is deserving and who's getting overlooked. Bullshit. Just and that's a criticism of the Hall of Fame.
Well, it's a criticism to the rules too. Like, you can only vote so many people. Like, they really shouldn't limit your votes.
You need to remove that limit. If somebody thinks that there are worthy people on the ballot, then let them vote for them.
Yeah, if there's what is their limit? Like 10, 15?
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
So, okay.
But if I look at the ballot and I say, hey, there are 15 guys on here who
should be able to vote for every one
Hall of Fame, then let me vote for 15 guys.
Yeah, because you have instances where, guys like, I'm not saying Jim Edmonds is Hall of Fame worthy, but he shouldn't have fallen off the ballot as quickly as he did. Mark McGwire probably, and I get it, right? I get there's some people that never vote for him. Same with Sammy. Like, there should be, like, this guy shouldn't fall off those ballots that quickly. So I agree. There's no way they shouldn't have those limits on there. I mean, they've got to protect these guys a little bit, right? Give them some insurance so they can be on there a little bit later. In fact, we all know how important it is to stay protected. The Weiler Group has 2 locations in Festus and Arnold to serve you. They offer home, auto, boat, but all the shit you drive on the road, plus your home and all the stuff you have in it, man. They'll insure it all. They can offer a customized approach that is unique to your situation. Make sure you, your family, and all your assets are properly protected. Great rates and savings. Give Sean and his team a call today at 636-764-6294. We all have busy lives. You can also email Sean at SeanWiley@allstate.com. Talk to him about your coverage options. And remember, you're in good hands with Allstate. Kind of forced that one in there.
No, that one was actually pretty good.
I had to wedge it. I had to stop the wheel and wedge it in there. It was an unpleasant feeling. I don't like having to do that. You know what else sucks? It's buying a car. It's stressful. It doesn't have to be. Fifth Street Motors, located in Pacific, Missouri, will help you find the vehicle you need no matter what brand. Fifth Street Motors believes in giving you the best price on a pre-owned vehicle that will fit your budget. Give Brandon or Don a call today at 573-259-1306. Tell them Team of Rivals podcast sent you. We got a new somebody else joined up with Gateway City Sports.
I saw that.
Pretty
That's
good.
A winner podcast.
It is
to the group.
Cardinals dedicated podcast called That's a Winner Podcast. I'm going to see what kind of availability they have in the coming weeks, Pete, and I'd like to get them on the show and do a little crossover there. But welcome then to the little collection of podcasts and bloggers that we have. I think it's pretty cool that they joined up, so I'll reach out to them. Look forward to getting them on there. But that at That's a Winner Podcast out there on Twitter. You can also search that on iTunes or whatever your podcatcher is and check them out.
I think that's a great way to go out.
It is. Let's go.
So if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to comment and subscribe. And if you want to help spread the word, please give us a 5-star review and tell your friends to do the same. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you listen to podcasts, as well as Rumble, Facebook, and YouTube. Be sure to check out the other Gateway City Sports Network podcasts, including the Derek King Sports Show, the That's a Winner podcast, and Talking Sports in the Bleachers with Don Glenn. Are there any others? I don't know. We don't know.
We're trying to hook a car battery up to all their nipples to get them going again.
You'll just have to keep checking in. They're kind of like Schrodinger's podcasts. They're podcasting, or maybe they're not, and you don't find out until you open the box. You can find Elliot on Twitter at TOR_Elliot. You can find Ron at
TOR_Ron75.
Get in touch with us. I got to rewrite this because I stumble over this every week.
Get in touch with us. You just turned a little Connery there.
Get in touch with us at the show at teamofrivalspodcast.com or on any social media channel at Team of Rivals Pod. What more can you say? Let's hope the machine keeps on rolling.
Let's hope he does. All right, Pete. Hopefully we'll link up again at regular time, regular place this week. Who knows? I know you got a busy lifestyle right now. Oh, look, it's done. Okay.
Homecoming was last night, man.
We are back. Okay, good. So we're back to normal this week. We'll be on Thursday. Can't guarantee that the lost one will find his way out of his boxes piled up in his garage. But if he is, we'd be happy to welcome him back on the show. Until then, we love you all so much. Bye-bye, everyone.